Hello, and welcome to another episode of Spiritual Vampires, where we take a close look at religious and spiritual leaders who knowingly and willingly take advantage of others for their own personal gain. In today's video, we will be looking into the history and behavior of Robert Morris, the former head pastor of Gateway Church, and what led to his ultimate downfall. Before we begin, I would like to give the following disclaimers. First, as the purpose of this video is reporting, commentary, and criticism, it is therefore covered under fair use. Second, I will be discussing the sensitive topic of SA during this video, mostly in sections 2 and 5. I will pin the timestamps for each section of this video to the top of the comments, so you can more easily bypass the parts of the video you are not comfortable with. And, as always, you are free to click off this video at any time. With all that being said, let's proceed. According to a Longview News Journal article, which is no longer available at the time of recording, Robert Morris grew up in a small town in Texas. He regularly attended church services with his family, and yet he hadn't given his life to Christ. He had spent his youth searching for happiness, which apparently caused him to stray from his faith. For a time, he also dealt drugs in the parking lot of the church that he and his parents attended between Sunday school and worship services. Robert and Debbie met during this time period, as they both attended the same church and youth group. In his late teens, Morris had been an evangelist at Longview's Highway 80 rescue mission and was a licensed Baptist preacher. Yet, according to Joel Morris, Robert Morris's father, quote, he was preaching from a young age, but it was not for the glory of God, it was for the glory of Robert, end quote. Morris's mother chimed in also, stating, yes, he was out for attention, always out for more attention. It was very troublesome. Other words they used to describe him included strong-willed and rebellious. Robert and Debbie began dating when she was 17 and he was 16. Debbie described herself as much more of a rule follower than Robert, yet she was charmed by him, and they were married in May of 1980. Robert's turn to Christ did not happen until February of 1981, when he was 19 years old. After living what he described as a sexually immoral lifestyle throughout high school, according to Morris's parents, his personality seemed to change after his conversion. Morris put aside the drugs, joined the James Robison Evangelistic Association in 1982, and then began traveling around the country and preaching at schools and youth revivals throughout the mid-1980s. Then suddenly, Morris had to step away from ministry for a time. According to the story Morris later told in his book From Dream to Destiny, and also to the elders at Gateway Church, Morris had stepped away from ministry over issues of pride, and that he had gotten involved with a so-called young woman outside of his marriage. According to Morris, he had sought forgiveness from the so-called young woman and had gotten her family's permission to return to ministry. Morris later claimed to have gone through a 2-year-long restoration process. However, it appears Morris was preaching again as early as October 1988, roughly a year and a half into his alleged 2-year restoration. Morris appeared to have left the association sometime between October 1988 and May 1989. He returned to Shady Grove Church in 1989 and, based on the findings from the Wayback Machine, appears to have remained there until 1999. Shady Grove Church later merged with Gateway Church in 2013 to form Gateway Church's Grand Prairie campus. Morris left Shady Grove Church and founded Gateway Church along with his wife Debbie in the year 2000. At its inception, Gateway had a congregation of 180 people. Its attendance grew steadily over the years until it eventually reached megachurch status. At its height, the church had over 100,000 active weekly attendees, as well as 9 locations throughout Texas, as well as locations in Wyoming and Missouri. Morris himself gained further prominence in 2016 when he was named by President Trump as a member of his Evangelical Advisory Committee. Morris even hosted a visit from Mr. Trump at Gateway Church in the year 2020. Morris has published numerous books during his tenure as head pastor of Gateway Church, including The Blessed Life, The Blessed Church, The Blessed Marriage, Beyond Blessed, From Dream to Destiny, The God I Never Knew, and Grace, period. Morris's last book was published only a couple of months prior to Morris's stepping down from Gateway Church as head pastor. What ultimately led to him stepping down? Enter Cindy Clemishire. Robert Morris met the Clemishire family in Hominy, Oklahoma, soon after Morris started to travel and preach at youth revivals. The Morris and the Clemishire families quickly grew close, to the point where the Clemishire family let Morris and occasionally his wife and son travel with them and stay at their house during the holidays. On Christmas Eve of 1982, the Clemishires had gone to pick up Robert and his father from the airport. Cindy and Robert had sat in the back seat together. Cindy later claimed that while everyone was unloading the car, Robert had asked her to visit him in his room before she went to bed. Cindy was the type of girl who listened to directions from trusted adults, so she did exactly what she was told. Once Cindy was in the room, Robert told her to lay down and close her eyes. When she did this, Robert proceeded to put his hands on her and touch her inappropriately. Cindy later stated that this included penetration with his hands. Morris warned Cindy afterwards to not tell anyone, or, quote, it would ruin everything, end quote. During the next 4.5 years, Robert continued to touch Cindy inappropriately, and Cindy told no one about it. Not her parents, not her sister, no one. During this time, Morris allegedly told his wife, Debbie, that he was counseling the girl. As Cindy got older, Morris's behavior only worsened. When she was still very much a teenager, Morris attempted to have intercourse with her in his car. The behavior only stopped when Cindy, at the age of 16, finally went to talk to her father and told him what Morris had been doing to her. Cindy's father was justifiably upset and demanded that Morris step away from ministry, or he would tell law enforcement exactly what happened. During Morris's time away from ministry, he briefly took a job as a security guard at a Motel 6 and supposedly went through counseling. Cindy received a phone call at one point from Morris's wife, Debbie, who told Cindy that she forgave her, which is a bizarre thing to say to a child, considering it was allegedly Debbie's husband who seduced and abused Cindy when she was underage. During the time period that Robert was a pastor at Shady Grove Church and later lead pastor over Gateway Church, Cindy Clemishire sought counseling, got married, and later started a career in real estate. It took years for Cindy to finally accept what Robert had done to her was abusive and a crime. Cindy described how her own turning point happened in 2005 after she watched an episode of The Oprah Winfrey Show in which Oprah talked openly about her own experiences with grooming and sexual molestation. Shortly afterward, Cindy had emailed Morris directly and stated, quote, Robert, men that have over 100 counts of child molestation go to prison. Men who pastor churches that have over 100 counts of child molestation go to prison and pay punitive damages. You have not had to do either. I do not believe that is fair or right. You have had almost no consequences for your actions. I have suffered almost my entire life from the emotional damage you inflicted on me. If you want to know what I want, call me. Otherwise, I will proceed with what has been advised. 23 years ago, after you began destroying my life, I am still dealing with the pain and damage you caused. I want some type of restitution. Pray about it and call me. Cindy had received a subsequent reply from former Gateway elder Tom Lane, who basically acknowledged that Robert's abuse of Cindy had started December 25th of 1982. Cindy retained then-attorney Gittner Drummond to file a civil suit to seek $50,000 as reimbursement for the counseling that she had to undergo to deal with what Morris had done to her. Morris's own attorney, J. Shelby Sharp, responded by stating it was Cindy herself, quote, who initiated inappropriate behavior by coming into my client's bedroom and getting in bed with him, which my client should not have allowed to happen, end quote. Morris, through his attorney, made a counteroffer to Cindy of only $25,000, which was about half of what Cindy was seeking. However, she would only get this money if she agreed to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Cindy refused to sign anything, but stayed quiet about her experiences a few more years. She had children by this point and was pregnant again. She feared what her kids would hear about her from court. Cindy took up the fight against Morris once again when her own son almost became a victim of grooming himself. A dad at his local school had been sending him questionable messages which Cindy had intercepted. Cindy knew exactly what the man was trying to do with her son and put a stop to all communications between them. A friend had urged Cindy to reach out to Wartburg Watch, which was a blog started by Dee and Deb, two ladies who had started the blog after an abuse scandal had rocked their own church. On June 14, 2024, Cindy's story of abuse at the hands of Robert Morris was finally released on the Wartburg Watch, and the news spread like wildfire. Various news organizations, such as the Christian Post, picked the story up quickly. Gateway Church congregants were also quick to respond. Some jumped to Morris's defense, while a lot of others thanked Cindy for coming forward. Robert Morris officially stepped down from his position at Gateway Church June 18, 2024, a few days after Cindy's allegations were posted. Elders at Gateway Church publicly stated they were aware Morris had, quote, several encounters with a young lady when he was in his 20s and had repented, but also stated they did not know Cindy's exact age at the time nor the full extent of the abuse. In a subsequent update to the Wartburg Watch blog, Cindy countered that elders at Gateway Church were very much aware of her allegations as early as 2005, when she was sent an email directly to Morris's Gateway email address and received a response from Tom Lane, a former Gateway elder. At that time, Lane freely acknowledged that the abuse began Christmas Eve of 1982, when Cindy was 12 years old. Lane had also stated publicly that he was unaware of the full extent of the abuse and Cindy's exact age at the time it happened. Prior to another article that was released in July 2024, NBC News reached out to both Drummond and Sharp, the attorneys who were involved in the 2007 settlement negotiations that had fallen through. Drummond, now the Attorney General of Oklahoma, confirmed Cindy's description of the 2007 negotiations, but declined to comment further on the subject. Sharp claimed to have no recollection of the settlement or NDA demand. He further stated he no longer represents Morris, but also added, quote, I can tell you that the letters that you have seen, they speak for themselves. I will not amplify beyond those letters because they speak for themselves, end quote. Also, in July of 2024, elders at Gateway Church announced that James and his wife Bridget Morris, who were slated to take over leadership of Gateway Church after their father's resignation, wound up also resigning from Gateway themselves. Only a month prior, James and 3 other elders had taken a leave of absence from the church, while the church's law firm investigated Cindy's allegations. According to Gateway elders, James Morris, quote, had no knowledge of the true facts, end quote, of his father's alleged abuse, but had taken a leave of voluntarily to ensure, quote, a truly independent and unbiased inquiry, end quote. To date, neither James nor Bridget have directly addressed the allegations against Robert. However, they were both nothing but cooperative and supportive of the investigation. Only a few weeks after leaving Gateway, James and Bridget Morris announced their intentions to start a new church of their own. The name of this new church, which was located in South Lake, Texas, was later revealed to be Passage Church. Additionally, Robert's daughter and son-in-law, Elaine Morris Fisher and Ethan Fisher, respectively, announced they were rebranding the Gateway Church Houston campus to Newlands Church, claiming the name change was a call from God. Shortly before the name change, Ethan Fisher addressed the allegations against his father-in-law with the congregation of Gateway.
And a part of grieving is actually making space for the feelings that you are experiencing in the moment. Sin will always lead to sadness and a broken heart. Whether the feelings are feelings of hurt, they could be feelings of devastation, feelings of anger, feelings of disappointment, betrayal, confusion, disbelief, shock, or even just simply surprise. The truth is, I've felt all of these feelings over the past week. And they kind of come in waves, and the grief comes in waves, and what we've had to navigate, and I've grieved for my family personally, but I also grieve for you as a church, and have prayed for you a countless number of times. I know that situations like this also bring up painful memories of past experiences. In a church our size, I know that there are many others who have a story of experiencing the harm, trauma, and pain of abuse. The truth is, you carried a weight with you that should never have been placed on you, for what should have never been done to you. And as a pastor, I'm sincerely sorry for the pain that you have carried for so long, especially if that pain has come at the hands of pastors.
A short time before this, Josh Morris, another one of Robert Morris's sons, has started a company and a nonprofit called TOV Co. and TOV Co. Foundation, respectively, which he runs alongside Nathan Watkins, who is another former pastor of Gateway Church. In his bio, Josh stated he had served in ministry for 20 years, but felt called to step away from that and turn his attention towards providing a space to grow for would-be leaders of businesses, nonprofit organizations, and churches. According to his LinkedIn page, Josh Morris claims to have left Gateway in December 2022. However, a video on Gateway's YouTube channel clearly shows his actual last sermon at Gateway occurred in March 2024, just a couple of months before Cindy's allegations were first made public. I'm not going to definitively say whether the date listed in Josh's LinkedIn profile was a straight-up lie or simply a mistake on his part. I'll leave that for you to decide. In November of 2024, Gateway elder Trey Wilbanks made a public announcement regarding the events that transpired after Cindy's story was made public, especially what happened during and after the investigation conducted by the church's law firm. According to Wilbanks, the church itself cooperated fully with the investigation. Wilbanks stated that no other allegations were made against Morris, and that Gateway Church had removed 4 of its elders who either knew about the allegations of SA by Robert Morris, or knew enough that they should have been investigated. The same month that Gateway made its announcement, Julie Roys of the Roys Report published a scathing article of her own highlighting Morris's finances. According to the report, while Morris kept urging his congregants to tithe 10% of their incomes in order to secure the blessings of God, he was buying and selling multiple multi-million-dollar properties in the state of Texas. These properties included a 370-acre ranch in Jacksboro, which was worth at least $8 million, a nearly $8 million custom home in Colleyville, a $1.7 million home 80 miles west of Fort Worth, and a nearly $4 million home in Dallas. At one point, Morris owned 3 homes simultaneously. Royce further stated that despite claiming to have independent audits for the last 19 years, Gateway had not released any audits to the public. She also claimed that Gateway refused requests to reveal Morris's salary over the past decade. According to the Royce report, Gateway elder Trey Wilbanks claimed in a November 2nd address that independent audits showed that Gateway gave 19% of its revenue to global missions. This contradicts the testimony of Alan Shoulders, a seasoned CPA and former Gateway pastor of Global Ministries. Shoulders claimed that during his tenure, Gateway never spent more than $3 million on global missions, despite having annual revenue exceeding $100 million. Shoulders also told Royce that he discovered about $1.5 million of unexplained transfers out of Gateway's Global Missions Fund, but when he pressed for answers, Morris asked for his resignation. Shoulders had also headed the Robert Morris Evangelistic Association. According to that organization's IRS Form 990 from 2022, Robert Morris had been paid a salary of $200,000 for roughly 15 hours of work a week. In 2021, he had been paid $100,000 from that same organization for the same amount of hours. In 2019, he had been paid $300,000, and in 2018, he had been paid a $350,000 salary a year. Why would there be such a stark difference in amounts over these years? In an address to the Gateway congregation, Elder Trey Willibanks stated that he had received financial demands from Morris, which had been rejected by Gateway Church. Morris has since filed a lawsuit against his old church and alleged Gateway elders had verbally agreed to pay him $800,000 until he reached the age of 70, and then $600,000 as long as he and his wife live. The church further stated that a written agreement was in place barring Morris from any sort of financial benefits if his departure is related to a felony conviction or plea. Morris was indicted on 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a child. Ginter Drummond stated, quote, "There can be no tolerance for those who sexually prey on children. This case is all the more despicable because the alleged perpetrator was a pastor who exploited his position. The victim in this case has waited far too many years for justice to be done," end quote. Morris turned himself in and was booked in an Oklahoma jail on March 17th, but was released mere minutes later on a $50,000 bond. One condition of his release was that he had to surrender his passport, so at least he's unable to leave the country. Morris's first appearance in court was May 9th, and Robert's attorney entered the plea of not guilty. On October 2nd, Robert Morris pleaded guilty to 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a child. He received a 10-year suspended sentence, with the first 6 months to be served in the Osage County Jail. Additionally, he must register as a sex offender, pay costs of incarceration, as well as pay restitution to Cindy. Gateway Church itself has not been immune from the fallout. Cindy Clemishire initiated a lawsuit against Gateway, as well as Robert and Debbie Morris, for failure to report the alleged abuse, as well as for defamation, libel, slander, civil conspiracy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and unjust enrichment. The suit claims that Morris, his wife, Gateway, and its elders all benefited financially from hiding any known information about the SA claims from Clemishire. It also accuses them of acting with actual malice. Gateway Church also currently faces legal action from some of its own former members, who are demanding refunds for money that they had tithed to the church. While Morris was still head pastor of Gateway, he had promised on multiple occasions to provide refunds to the congregation if they weren't satisfied with the blessings they had received. The former congregants also demanded full transparency on where the money received from tithes was being spent. What mindset does someone have to sexually abuse a teenager and then later try to minimize the damage that they had done? I will now show a brief clip of one of Robert Morris's sermons from 2014 at Gateway Church to help better shed light on how men like him think.
I learned to lie and manipulate. Because I also had rejection, I didn't want to be rejected. So I looked for the girls that would be the most susceptible. And I learned how to spot this in girls. Please hear me. There's a reason I'm sharing this. The very thing, ladies, that the world tells you to give a man before marriage so that you can keep him is the very thing that will cause you to lose him. I looked for girls that did not have a good relationship with their father. I learned to spot that. I looked for girls that were insecure. And I don't know, now I look back on this, I can tell I did it. It wasn't like a plan that I had, but I could spot this. Girls were made to be held by men. And if they are not held, if that need is not met in a healthy way by their father, they will meet it in an unhealthy way. But you need to understand that if a man does not respect you, he cannot love you. He cannot love you. As a matter of fact, fulfilled lust turns to hate. And I wish I had time to show you the whole passage. 2 Samuel 13 talks about Amnon and Tamar, and that Amnon really loved her. He loved her, and that Tamar loved him. But Amnon forces her and rapes her. And then I want to just show you one verse. Really, I'd love for you to read the whole chapter later. Verse 15 says, then Amnon, this is right after it happens, then Amnon hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred with which he hated her was greater than the love with which he had loved her. And Amnon said, arise and be gone. And she said, no, please don't send me away. And he actually calls a servant and says, throw this woman out and bolt the door behind her. God meant for us to express love in a healthy way. Because of the lust that was in my life, it has taken years for me to get over the images and the things that I saw that no person should have ever seen. And the appetites that were created in me that God never intended to be created in me. Please understand that when God says don't, there's a reason.
Now, Morris is trying to make a point about premarital sex, which is all well and good. A lot of pastors do this. However, he puts across this idea that once a man has sexual desires, he'll automatically want to sleep around even while he's married. And that's just simply not the case all the time. But that only shows how men like him think about sexuality. I'm of the opinion that Morris pretty much told on himself with his selection of this Bible story. He knew he was guilty of forcing himself on someone in the past. And he related specifically to the man in the Bible story. When abusers are allowed to remain in positions of leadership and authority, the harm they cause isn't just the abuse itself, but is often, all too often, more insidious than that. And also can include normalizing toxic attitudes and behaviors, as well as painting the victim as the one causing the problems. All this creates a silent ripple effect in the wider communities they occupy, in which real victims and the people who would otherwise advocate for them are silenced, and would-be abusers are emboldened to do the same disgusting behavior. Just prior to Cindy sharing her story publicly for the first time, pastoral staff at Gateway Church had failed to respond when another woman had reported that the men at the singles ministry within Gateway Church were behaving in ways that were questionable, to say the least. The woman wound up leaving the church and telling the ladies at Wartburg Watch her story. I just want to make clear, I have nothing against Christianity itself. People are free to worship as they choose as long as other people aren't harmed in the process. Cindy and the ladies who run the Wartburg Watch are still very devoted to their faith. However, there are plenty of other examples I could give where the trauma from spiritual and other forms of abuse led to a loss of faith, a lost sense of self, or worse. It need not be this way. However, it is often the case when people fall under the influence of the spiritual vampire. If you made it this far, I thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you wish to see more content like this. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.